The first time Emily Hart saw the girl with the stormy eyes, it was a quiet Tuesday morning at Harborview Diner, the kind of place where the smell of fresh coffee clung to the air and the windows looked out onto the gray Atlantic waves. Emily was refilling salt shakers when the bell above the door chimed and a tall man stepped in, dressed in an immaculate suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. In front of him walked a girl, no older than 12, wearing oversized sunglasses, with her arms crossed so tightly it looked like she was holding herself together. The girl carried an expression that dared the world to come close. Emily watched as they sat in her section, the man tapping his phone repeatedly while the girl stared out the window. "Good morning," Emily said with a practiced smile as she approached. It didn't matter who people were, tourists, truck drivers, or billionaires in tailored suits, everyone got the same warm greeting. "What can I get you both today?" The man didn't look up. "I'll have a black coffee." "And she'll have," he hesitated, as though trying to recall the preferences of the girl sitting across from him, "whatever kids eat." The girl snapped her head toward him. "Kids? Seriously?" she muttered. Her voice was edged with irritation but carried a tremor beneath it, the kind that only someone who'd been watching human emotions for years could detect. Emily gently turned her focus to the girl. "What do you like?" she asked softly. The girl tilted her chin upward, defensive. "You wouldn't get it. Try me." Something about Emily's tone, calm, patient, gently inviting, made the girl pause. She pushed her sunglasses up onto her head, revealing eyes so blue they looked like glass reflecting a cruel sky. "Belgian waffles," she finally muttered. "With strawberries. Not syrup." "That I can absolutely do," Emily replied with a warm grin. The man exhaled in impatience. "Make it quick. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Emily gave a nod and went to place the order, but the curiosity nagged at her. She'd worked at Harborview long enough to know when something felt off. The suit-wearing man, she recognized him now after glancing twice, was Richard Caldwell, one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs on the East Coast. His face was plastered across magazines at the grocery store, which meant the girl sitting stiffly at table 7 was probably the infamous Lydia Caldwell, the billionaire's daughter who, according to headlines, had gone through 6 nannies in 2 years and was rumored to be unmanageable. Emily had always believed that no child was unmanageable, only unheard. When she returned with their food, the man was still typing furiously, but the girl was fiddling with the silverware, her expression tense, as though bracing for disappointment. Emily placed the waffle in front of her. "Fresh strawberries," she whispered. "Just like you asked." Lydia blinked. "Thanks," she mumbled without looking up. But Emily saw the tiny shift in her shoulders, something easing, even if just a fraction. 2 minutes later, the sound of the man's vibrating phone cut through the quiet diner. "Yes, I'm leaving now," he said abruptly and stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "Lydia, finish quickly. I'll send the driver back for you." "But, Dad," the girl began. "No arguing. I don't have time." He strode out the door, leaving the girl staring at the half-eaten waffle as though it had betrayed her too. Emily walked over slowly. "Mind if I sit for a second?" Lydia shrugged, guarded but not dismissive. Emily sat. "Rough morning?" she asked. "That obvious?" the girl muttered. Emily chuckled softly. "I've got a radar for tough mornings." For the first time, Lydia looked directly at her. "Everyone thinks I'm a problem," she said. Her voice cracked, not dramatically, but in the quiet, painful way of someone who'd learned to cry silently. "Teachers, nannies, reporters, even my dad. I don't think that," Emily said gently. "You just met me. Sometimes that's enough." The girl blinked rapidly, as though trying to process this strange, unfamiliar kindness. A softness flickered across her features before she quickly shielded it again. But Emily noticed. She noticed everything. Lydia began coming to the diner 3 times a week after that. The first few visits, a driver dropped her off, and she sat alone at the same booth, headphones on, staring at the ocean. But every time, Emily approached without fear or hesitation, offering a smile, a conversation, a moment of warmth. Little by little, Lydia unraveled. She confessed she barely saw her father. That she missed her mother, who had passed away when she was 8. That she hated the giant mansion because it echoed with emptiness. That she went through nannies not because she wanted to cause trouble, but because none of them really listened. "They look at me like a job," Lydia whispered one afternoon. "Like something they need to survive." Emily leaned her arms on the table. "I see a girl who's been carrying too much alone." "No one ever says that," Lydia said with a stunned, almost frightened expression. "They just say I'm difficult." You're grieving, Emily corrected softly. And lonely. That doesn't make you difficult. It makes you human. Something inside Lydia cracked open that day, like a shell finally giving way to light. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Lydia didn't show up. Emily tried not to worry, but as the hours passed, a heaviness settled over her. When the door chimed late in the evening, and a drenched Lydia, soaked head to toe, stepped in, Emily rushed toward her. Lydia, what happened? The girl's voice was trembling. My dad's girlfriend, she whispered. She said I ruined their dinner and that I was ungrateful and messed up. She told my dad he should send me to some boarding school in Switzerland. Emily's heart shattered. The girl was only 12 and already being told she took up too much space in her own home. Come here, Emily said, pulling her gently into a hug. Lydia didn't resist. She folded into Emily like someone collapsing into safety for the first time. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. You did the right thing coming here, Emily murmured. But in the doorway, another figure appeared, Richard Caldwell himself, soaked from the rain, eyes frantic. When he spotted his daughter clinging to a waitress in a run-down diner, his expression morphed from confusion to offended pride. What is going on? He demanded. Lydia froze, immediately stepping back, her arms wrapping around herself. Emily straightened. She needed someone, she said simply. Richard looked at Emily with irritation. She needs discipline. She ran out of the house without permission. She was hurting, Emily corrected gently. She needed comfort, not punishment. Richard stared at her, shocked that a waitress, someone so far removed from his world, would dare correct him. You don't know anything about us, he snapped. I know your daughter is terrified of losing another person she loves, Emily replied quietly. And she's not acting out. She's reaching out. Something flickered in his eyes then, anger, yes, but also something else. Something like guilt. Lydia, he said stiffly, we're leaving. The girl lowered her head and walked toward him, but Emily could see the tears streaming down her face. Wait, Emily said suddenly. Richard paused. Emily took a step forward. She is an incredible kid. Smart, kind, hurting, but not beyond reach. She needs someone who listens. Who sits with her emotions instead of trying to silence them. Whoever told you she's impossible was wrong. Richard swallowed hard, clearly unused to anyone speaking to him this way. And, Emily continued softly, she needs you, Mr. Caldwell. Not your money, not your schedule. You. Silence filled the diner, heavy and vibrating with emotion. Richard placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, gently, tentatively. Let's go home, he said, but his voice had softened. For the first time, Lydia looked unsure, not of her father, but of leaving the one person who had understood her. It's okay, Emily whispered. Go home, talk to him, let him try. Lydia nodded and followed her father out. But as the door closed behind them, Emily felt a sudden ache, because she wasn't sure she'd ever see the girl again. Weeks passed. Lydia didn't show up, not once. Emily pretended not to worry, but every time she passed table 7, her chest tightened a little. Was Lydia okay? Had Richard truly listened? Had the girl been shipped off to Switzerland after all? Emily didn't know, and it hurt. One crisp Saturday morning, the diner was unusually quiet. Emily was wiping down table 7 when the bell above the door chimed. She froze. It was Lydia, smiling. Behind her stood Richard Caldwell, dressed not in a suit, but in jeans and a navy sweater, hands in his pockets, expression soft in a way Emily had never seen. Lydia ran toward her. Emily. Before Emily could speak, the girl hugged her tightly. You came back, Emily whispered, squeezing her. Richard stepped forward. Miss Hart, he said, clearing his throat, I owe you an apology. Emily blinked. She hadn't expected that. You were right, he continued. I wasn't listening. I was afraid, I suppose. Afraid of failing her. Afraid of admitting I didn't know how to be both a CEO and a parent. His voice faltered. I've made changes. Lydia beamed. He's home for dinner now. Almost every night. And we talk. Like, real talking. Emily's chest warmed. And, Richard added, I'm looking for someone who can help us, someone she trusts. Someone who sees her. Someone who isn't intimidated by, well, everything. Emily frowned. What do you mean? Lydia looked up at her with hopeful eyes. We want to hire you, she said softly. Not as a nanny. As part of our family. Emily laughed in shock. I'm a waitress. You're the first person who's ever made me feel understood, Lydia whispered. That matters more than anything. Richard nodded. We can arrange hours that work for you, salary you won't believe, benefits. Emily put a hand over her heart. It's not about the money. I know, Richard said. That's exactly why we're asking. Emily looked at the girl clinging to her hand, eyes shining with trust and something even deeper, hope. Her answer was immediate. Yes, I'd love to. Lydia squealed and hugged her again. In the months that followed, the Caldwells' mansion slowly transformed. Not because of the decor, but because a certain warmth filled its spaces, one that had been missing for far too long. Emily helped Lydia with homework, taught her how to cook pancakes, listened to her fears, celebrated her victories, and reminded her every day that she was not too much, not impossible, not alone. And Richard, who once lived by his calendar, learned to pause. To breathe, to sit and listen, to be a father first. One snowy evening, as they all sat together by the fireplace, Lydia looked at Emily and whispered, "No one could ever handle me." Emily brushed a strand of hair from her face. "No, sweetheart, they just didn't know your heart. But you did the impossible," Lydia whispered. Emily smiled gently. "It was never impossible, you just needed someone who cared." The girl leaned, her head on Emily's shoulder. And in that moment, warm, fragile, and full of truth, they all understood something profound. Family isn't built from blood or wealth or circumstances. Family is built from the people who choose to stay. The people who listen. The people who care. And sometimes, it only takes one act of compassion in a small seaside diner to change the course of a life. Or two lives. Or an entire family.